The corridors of Huris Star Station, orbiting the center of the galaxy, hummed with palpable tension. It was a rare day, one of those when representatives from the greatest cosmic powers gathered not to settle disputes, but to discuss the future of a race that, just over 3 centuries ago, still gazed at the stars with wonder and ignorance. Humans. At the head of the oval table stood the Earth Ambassador, alone and imposing, a figure at the heart of the intergalactic stage. His sharp eyes scanned the room, the silence so thick that even the breath of those present seemed stifled. Some delegates avoided his gaze, while others looked at him with a mix of contempt and caution. For many, merely sharing the same space with a human was offensive. Finally, one of the representatives, a being with iridescent skin and slender tentacles, stood up. His voice, deep and resonant, echoed in the vast chamber. "Ambassador," he began, "today marks a historic moment. It is with great honor that we welcome the Earth Empire into our alliance of civilizations." The ambassador remained silent, his brown eyes still fixed on the document before him as if he hadn't heard a word. A wave of unease rippled through the room, the tension palpable. The leader of the meeting, sensing the discomfort, raised a golden scroll, displaying it with ceremonial grandeur. "After months of intense negotiations, we have reached a final agreement. Now, each of us must ratify this treaty." With a respectful bow, he was the first to sign the document, marking it with the seal of his empire. The treaty was then passed around the table, each representative adding their seal. Some signed with indifference, others with open disdain. But when it reached the reptilian creature Varnak, a spark of fury broke the silence. In a swift, aggressive motion, Varnak threw the document to the ground, his scales shimmering under the cold station lights. "How can we allow these barbarians to join us?" His voice sliced through the air. "Calm down, Vanetsa," the meeting leader urged, attempting to maintain order. "It's already been decided. The Earth Empire will be one of us." "You decided," Varnak hissed venomously, casting accusatory glances around the room. "But you didn't suffer at the hands of these savages like we did. 24 incubation planets destroyed, reduced to ash by your mechanical abominations." Until then, the Earth Ambassador had been still and silent. "Now," he spoke, his voice steady but firm. "You attacked Earth," Varnak snarled. "A few 100,000 humans, nothing compared to the devastation you inflicted on us. You wiped out entire generations. Entire families were erased before they even had a chance to be born. No species has ever committed such atrocities." The ambassador's eyes narrowed. He took a deliberate step forward, his presence dominating the room. His words hung heavy in the air. "You attacked Earth." As the ambassador advanced, the reptilian creature's earlier bravado began to wane. "We were a divided people," the ambassador continued, "fighting amongst ourselves for land, for power, for wealth, until you attacked. You gave us a reason to unite. From that day on, we were no longer nations, tribes, or corporations. We were Earth, and you were the enemy." The ambassador bent down, picked up the discarded treaty, and placed it back on the table with a deliberate thud, causing several diplomats to flinch. "Do you know why we created these rules of war?" he asked, his voice cold. "Because our species has a history soaked in blood. We've committed genocide, enslaved each other, tortured and destroyed ourselves for millennia. These rules were our salvation, or we would have annihilated ourselves long before we left our home." The reptilian Varnak, who had held his posture with arrogance, now faltered. His claws trembled slightly, and his gaze no longer challenged the ambassador's. "These rules," the ambassador continued, "were never designed for a war with beings who saw us as lesser. You left us no choice." Rising again, the ambassador stared directly into Varnak's eyes. "And now, you face a united Earth without any rules to limit us. The only thing standing between you and our vengeance is this treaty." He pushed the document toward the reptilian leader. "I suggest you sign it, or you'll learn firsthand why we humans needed these rules." Trembling, Varnak reluctantly took the treaty, signing it with shaking hands. The ambassador watched in silence before taking the treaty back. "Looks like my work here is done. Have a pleasant day." Without another word, he left the room. The door closed behind him with a soft hiss, and the remaining diplomats let out a breath they hadn't realized they were holding. "What a terrifying species," someone muttered from the back of the room. In the shadows, the discussions became more heated. "We never should have let them into the alliance." Varnak growled. "Our combined forces could crush the Terran Empire." The alliance leader, his expression somber, nodded slowly. "Perhaps, but at what cost?" They've already raised dozens of planets for a few 100,000 dead humans. Imagine what they'd do if we cornered them. It's safer to keep them close, he continued. Try to civilize them. Control them. They'll spread like a poison, Max spat. We need to act now before it's too late. Then why did you sign the treaty? The Alliance leader retorted. Impatient, Varnak paused, his voice bitter. We're not ready for war. Not yet. Meanwhile, Ambassador John Edward strode swiftly through the halls of the Grand Council, his mind racing. He knew the Alliance's sentiment was deeply divided, with many still harboring hostility toward humans. As he entered a private room, his assistant, Lieutenant Maria Sanchez, greeted him, concern in her eyes. How did it go? As expected, John replied, handing her the signed treaty. They all signed, albeit grudgingly. Do you think they'll honor the agreement? She asked, scanning the signatures. They don't have a choice. John said, they fear us, but fear alone won't sustain peace. We need to prove we're more than warriors. In the months that followed, the Earth Empire began integrating into the alliance of civilizations. Human embassies were established on various planets, staffed by diplomats, scientists, and cultural representatives. Joint research and cultural exchange programs helped build bridges where suspicion still lingered. On the planet Zixer, a joint human-Zorian research station studying geothermal energy led to breakthroughs in sustainable power. On Merid, a planet known for its lush flora, human agricultural experts worked with locals to develop crops that thrived in extreme environments, helping alleviate hunger on several worlds. Despite these successes, tensions remained. On the industrial planet Drar, a dispute between human workers and native miners nearly escalated into violence. Weeks of careful negotiations, led by Ambassador Edward, finally resolved the crisis. Back on Earth, cities flourished as intergalactic commerce and culture thrived. Alien visitors marveled at human ingenuity, while humans embraced the diversity of the galaxy. In the capital, New Geneva, President Eleanor Weiss chaired a council meeting to discuss humanity's future within the Alliance. We've made progress, she began, but we must remain vigilant. Ambassador Edward leaned forward, his voice calm. We need to expand our humanitarian efforts. There are many worlds suffering from poverty and disease. We can help. Weiss nodded. Agreed. We'll allocate more resources and ensure our actions are visible. The galaxy needs to see that we're committed to peace, but in a distant part of the galaxy, on the planet Xander, home of the warlike Xandorians, the rise of the Terran Empire was seen as a direct threat. The Supreme Warlord Croak seethed. We must prepare for war, he declared. Ambassador Edward received word of the impending threat and immediately sought a diplomatic solution. After days of tense negotiations, Warlord Croak begrudgingly agreed to consider cooperation. As Edward left Xander, he knew that while war had been averted for now, the future was still uncertain. But humanity had found its place among the stars, and nothing would be the same again.